Behind the Meadow, how an extremist Mullah's Muslim enclave tests the limits of American integration, written by Misha, a Muslim enclave rising in rural Texas, has become a lightning rod for fears of separatism, political opportunism, and anxiety about Islamic enclaves in America's own backyard. In the Piney Flatlands, 40 minutes northeast of Dallas, where megachurches outnumber stoplights and Friday night football still feels like liturgy, a 402-acre patch of former ranchland has become the newest fault line in America's demographic landscape. Acquired by the East Plano Islamic Center Masjid, one of the largest mosques in North Texas, the idyllic slice of real estate is the site for a faith-based community tailored to Muslim families. Originally dubbed the East Plano Islamic Center, Epic City, this master-planned enclave envisions 1,000 homes, a school, clinics, corner groceries, playgrounds, and, at its spiritual and architectural center, a mosque large enough to hold 5,000 worshippers under one soaring dome. In November 2025, amid escalating political scrutiny, developers quietly renamed it the Meadow, a pastoral moniker intended to evoke serenity rather than separatism. It's a soft name for a project tied to Yasir Qadhi, an ethnic Pakistani cleric with one of the hardest extremist records in America. From Salafi firebrand to moderate voice, Qadhi, who is central to the narrative, has long drawn concern due to a widely reported and decades-old history of preaching hatred, homophobia, and Holocaust denial. Born in 1975 in Houston to Pakistani parents, Qadhi studied at the Islamic University of Medina, imbibing Salafi Wahhabi influences prevalent in Gulf-funded seminaries. In the early 2000s, as a young preacher, he delivered sermons endorsing Hudud punishments, Islamic penal codes, as mandated by the Caliphate. A 2003 lecture, archived online, stated, "All Muslims agree that the punishment for homosexual intercourse is death. Stoning adulterers, this is our religion. We can't do this in America, but if we had an Islamic state, we would." Recordings show Qadhi promoting extreme ideas, including a claim that Jewish people infiltrated Islamic studies departments at American universities in an effort to destroy Muslims. Such rhetoric, voiced in UK tours organized by the East London Mosque, drew condemnation from LGBTQ+ advocates. These statements from Qadhi led to a media expose linking him to Epic City as its ideological architect. The fear is not what the new Islamic city will turn out to be. Rather, it's what many Muslim-majority neighborhoods in the West are known to become. Indoctrination centers promoting genital mutilation, apostasy lynchings, and honor-based violence against westernized daughters, and safe sanctuaries for violent extremists. But Qadhi is doubling down. His April 2025 sermon at Epic Masjid defended the Islamic enclave biblically. True followers of Jesus do not cower before Pharaoh's tyranny. Invoking Christian resilience against Roman persecution, he positions his city as interfaith dialogue, not isolation, inviting Christians to events and, at least outwardly, condemning terrorism. Nonetheless, his past haunts him. A 2017 Henry Jackson Society report labeled him an Islamist extremist for praising the Taliban. Historical context: Muslims in the Bible Belt, Texas, nestled in the U.S. South's Bible Belt, is a paradox for Muslim Americans. Home to over 420,000 Muslims, comprising 1.5% of the state's population, the region has growing Islamic communities in Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth, along with recent political polarization. The Bible Belt's cultural hegemony, rooted in Protestant evangelicalism, often frames Islam as an existential threat, echoing historical nativist reactions to Catholic immigrants in the 19th century. But proponents say the Epic Masjid illustrates this tension. Founded in 2005 and expanded in 2015, it serves a multi-ethnic Islamic congregation of over 5,000 weekly attendees, offering prayers, education, and social services. They say it's a proposed city stemming from a practical desire. Many Muslims, like Orthodox Jews or Amish families, prefer living near places of worship to facilitate daily prayers and access to halal amenities. Grocery stores stocking permissible foods and schools incorporating Islamic studies. Epic City is not unprecedented. It mirrors faith-based developments protected under the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act of 2000. Accusations of extremism and Sharia imposition, however. Not everyone is buying the idea that an Islamic city in their vicinity will be as invisible, quiet, and non-threatening as an Amish village. Plans for the Muslim-friendly community were immediately met with opposition from nearby residents, county leaders, and state leaders who claimed Epic City intended to exclude non-Muslims from buying or renting in the development, violating fair housing laws. Residents packed county commissioners' meetings, vocalizing concerns and claiming Epic City was an Islamic compound that intended to enforce Sharia law. In Texas conservative corridors, such initiatives evoke fears of parallel societies. Governor Greg Abbott's April 2025 directive to halt construction cited unpermitted environmental reviews, but rhetoric escalated to warnings of Sharia encroachment. Senator John Cornyn urged DOJ probes into religious discrimination and Sharia law in the same month, framing the project as discriminatory against non-Muslims. These accusations parallel European debates over no-go zones in Molenbeek or Malmo, where Muslim enclaves have become hotbeds of terrorism. Funding for the project relies on pre-sales and donations, prompting a March 2025 securities probe by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton for unregistered offerings. By December 2025, Paxton sued to halt the project, alleging a radical plot to destroy Texas land via illegal schemes. Abbott's administration, fresh from designating CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist entities in November 2025, views EPIC as an extension of global Islamist networks. A September 2025 bill, HB 4211, signed by Abbott, imposed stricter environmental hurdles for fair housing, but was decried by EPIC as targeted sabotage. Supporters of the project counter that such scrutiny stifles minority agency. The Texas Workforce Commission resolved discrimination claims in September 2025, finding no bias in hiring or sales. The DOJ's May-June 2025 probe, spurred by Cornyn, examined Fair Housing Act violations but closed without action, affirming EPIC's right to affirmative marketing to Muslims. CARE sued Abbott in November 2025 over defamatory terrorist labels, alleging First Amendment violations. Toward ghettoization, self-replicating models, and extremism risks, a significant risk of greenlighting the project is that it could lead to a self-replicating model. Enclaves like the Meadow could spawn similar projects in New York, Atlanta, Houston, or Phoenix, causing Islamic ghettoization, socioeconomic isolation breeding extremism, akin to France's banlieues. Urban sociologists like Saskia Sassen argue that enclaves can entrench inequality, limiting intergroup contact and amplifying radical voices. In Britain, grooming scandals in segregated Muslim areas led to the rise of the far right. Social isolation and lack of integration. Islamic enclaves can foster isolation from the broader society, creating parallel societies where residents have limited interaction with non-Muslims. This segregation may stem from language barriers, discrimination, or self-imposed separation to preserve cultural identity. In such settings, mainstream values like secularism or pluralism may be undermined, making individuals more susceptible to extremist ideologies. Critical factor is community reluctance to cooperate with authorities, often due to distrust stemming from perceived Islamophobia, heavy-handed policing, or loyalty to fellow community members. This can allow terrorist plots to develop undetected. For example, a 2016 ICM survey conducted for Channel 4 in Britain found that only about one-third, 34%, of British Muslims polled said they would report to the police if they knew someone who was getting involved with supporting terrorism in Syria, implying that two-thirds would not. This hesitation, whether from fear of reprisal or cultural solidarity, can inadvertently shield radicals and enable breeding grounds for terrorism. On the issue of violent retaliation for insulting religious figures, 32% refused to condemn people who took part in violence against those who mock Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, That is, they either sympathized or declined to condemn. And that's not all. 52% said homosexuality should be illegal. 47% said it is unacceptable for a gay or lesbian person to be a teacher in school. 23% said they supported the introduction of Sharia law in parts of Britain. 39% agreed with the statement that wives should always obey their husbands. 31% said it was acceptable for a man to have more than one wife. You get the picture. An Islamic enclave, even with a pastoral name, is not going to be as bucolic as an Amish village. Those who believe that all the Muslim residents in an Islamic city will be milking cows and baling hay are in for a nasty surprise. External and geopolitical influences. Enclave can be influenced by global events, such as conflicts in the Middle East, which fuel anti-Western sentiment. Terrorist groups use social media to target diaspora communities, turning local frustrations into calls for action. In Europe, Moroccan-origin networks have been linked to several attacks, often operating from enclaves where cultural ties facilitate recruitment. Lessons from Hamtramck, an Islamic city where America stops at the border in the 99 years since its incorporation. Every mayor of Hamtramck, Michigan, had been Polish-American. That ended in 2021, Hamtramck's centenary year, when Amr Galib was inaugurated, along with an entirely Muslim city council. Hamtramck, founded by Polish immigrants, became the first city in the U.S. with a government made up entirely of Muslims. It started in the 1990s when waves of Yemenis, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis moved in. Some of these new immigrants were the opposite of civic-minded, littering the immaculate streets of Hamtramck and blaring the Islamic call to prayer from the roofs of the mosques. The Poles were reduced to an asterisk, strangers in a suddenly strange land where women now walked the streets robed from head to toe in black niqabs, where the signs on the storefronts were now written in scripts foreign to them, where schools replaced Easter vacation with time off at the end of Ramadan, and where the sound of the Islamic call to prayer now competed with the tones of church bells. Hamtramck's image as a symbol of multicultural success was shattered. A city that once had more bars per capita than any other place in the country was now dominated by a culture that forbids alcohol. What was a hotspot of artists and musicians known for a liberal acceptance of eccentricities and differences now drew international attention when a Muslim city council voted to ban the gay pride flag from city properties. And what had been a quiet, working-class town suddenly became internationally famous as an example of what sudden demographic change looks like. Significantly, the very name of the main street was changed to reflect not just the culture of the newcomers, but also the politics they brought with them. When the all-Muslim city council voted to rename Holbrook Avenue as Palestine Avenue, in reaction to the Israel-Hamas war, then, in its fourth month, Imam Imran Salha of the Islamic Center of Detroit declared, "There is power to renaming things." What significance is there to Holbrook? There's nothing special about Holbrook. The message was clear. Things are now different here. This is a Muslim city, and non-Muslims don't matter in Hamtramck. Lessons from Dearborn. An American city where the Muslim mayor says Christians are not welcome. In September 2025, a controversy erupted in Dearborn, Michigan, home to the largest Arab American population in the U.S., during a city council meeting. Christian resident and Minister Ted Barham criticized honorary street signs on Warren Avenue, naming intersections after Osama Sablani, publisher of the Arab American News, whom Barham accused of supporting Hezbollah and Hamas through past statements praising martyrs and armed resistance. Barham called the honors provocative, comparing them to naming streets after terror groups. Muslim Mayor Abdullah Hamad interrupted, labeling Barham a bigot, racist, and Islamophobe, then stated, "Although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of this city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out." The clash drew national attention, highlighting the tensions that inevitably follow when Muslims take over a city and start excluding the original residents. For the avowed aim of Islam was, and still is, to impose the religion of Muhammad on the world and convert infidels by persuasion or force, and make them pledge allegiance to Allah. Conclusion. The devil can quote scripture. 2. Meanwhile, as the dust settles on the Meadow's rebranded vision, the debate underscores a profound American conundrum. The sacred right to faith-based community versus the specter of isolationist enclaves that could erode the social fabric. Yasir Qadhi's fiery Salafi rhetoric fuels legitimate fears of radical undertones seeping into impressionable youth. His belated condemnation of terrorism is simply backpedaling to avoid the heat. He's merely following the Quranic practice of taqiyya, whereby an individual may be less than fully truthful when such an individual is reasonably afraid that the consequences of being fully truthful may place them at a disadvantage. In other words, if telling the truth is going to put your life or well-being at risk, you can say what you need to survive and stay safe. In the backdrop of European cautionary tales from Molenbeek's alleys to Britain's no-go Sharia zones, where 2/3 of surveyed Muslims hesitated to alert authorities on terror sympathies, the East Plano Project risks birthing self-reinforcing parallel societies if unchecked. They will be breeding grounds for grievances, foreign-funded ideologies, and the quiet shielding of extremism under the cloak of cultural solidarity. The path forward demands vigilant integration, robust oversight to enforce bridging ties, incentives for outward engagement, and a collective commitment to bonding. Only then can the Meadow bloom. Those who ignore the perils are in for bitter disappointment. Like Katrina Stackpool, a lesbian former councilwoman who supported and advocated for the immigrant community, helping Yemenis, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis to ease their transition into Hamtramck. But as the demographic and political balance shifted, the city's, now majority Muslim, council voted unanimously to ban the display of LGBTQ+ pride flags. In a public council meeting, Stackpool expressed raw feelings of anger and heartbreak. We welcomed you. We created nonprofits to help feed, clothe, and find housing. We did everything we could to make your transition here easier. And this is how you repay us? By stabbing us in the back. Yes, Katrina, people like you are known as useful idiots who appease the alligator, hoping it will eat you last.